Hello, BookTube. I have a quick morning mail haul for you. Bright, temperate, beautiful summer morning with an odd collection of packages here, odd sizes, odd weights. It ends in a box, and the box is ornate. So I don't really know what's going on here. Let's just go through them and see what we have. Like, for instance, this first one is an international shipping document. That could be. I try to make a point of not abusing the privilege by making book requests for UK publishers. It just seems like, why put them to the expense for just one reviewer? Oh, okay. Oh, great. All right. This is boy, this is a book I can recommend too. I reviewed it, but I think I may have reviewed it back when I wasn't quite. Either I didn't have a BookTube channel, or I wasn't quite sure how to do it. I don't think I talked about it enough. Now that it's coming out in a $16 paperback, I can really recommend it. It's by John Nixon, and it's Debriefing the President, the interrogation of Saddam Hussein. And this paperback comes with a very sexy blurb, and it's all about it's some of the stuff in here is redacted. Some of it, not much. But it's, well, anyway, let me read it to you then. It's in December of 2003, after one of the largest, most aggressive manhunts in history, U.S. military forces captured Iraqi President Saddam Hussein near his hometown of Tikrit. Beset by body double rumors and false alarms during a 9-month search, the Bush administration needed positive identification of the prisoner before it could make an announcement that would rocket around the world. At this time, John Nixon was a senior CIA leadership analyst who had spent years studying the Iraqi dictator. Called upon to make the official ID, Nixon looked for telltale scars and tribal tattoos and asked Hussein a list of questions only he could answer. The man was indeed Saddam Hussein, but as Nixon learned in the ensuing weeks, both he and America had greatly misunderstood just who Saddam Hussein really was. And I thought it was just fascinating. A fascinating look inside the mind of Saddam Hussein. And really inherently dramatic. I don't know. Well, if I can, I will try and link my review down below. But this got Nick McDonald, the author of 12, the extremely young author of 12. He's not extremely young anymore, but when he wrote the novel 12, he was a baby. And he wrote that a CIA officer should hold power to account in a memoir is unusual and patriotic. John Nixon has done so with insight and style. And the blurb they picked for me was, Nixon captures the psychological give and take of these exchanges with gripping readability, and he describes the resultant verbal sparring with a sharp ear for nuance. And it's fascinating. And it's going to come out in paperback. It's been a while, I think, but it's going to come out in paperback. That's wonderful. No idea why it has an international envelope, but boy, it's great to be able to recommend the book. All right, so we're off to a fine start. Still feels like a weird collection of packages here, but let's see. But weird or no, you can't start off a mail haul any better than with a Steve Donahue blurb. Okay. Okay, this is new to me. This comes out in November from Harvard University Press. It's by Aaron Sheehan-Dean, and it's called The Calculus of Violence: How Americans Fought the Civil War. Shoot, to kill, or to injure. This is the pub sheet, starting off that way. To dress the wound or let it bleed. To imprison or to set free. These questions plagued policymakers, soldiers, slaves, and civilians throughout America's Civil War. Aaron Sheehan-Dean argues that had these questions not been asked, America's bloodiest war would have been far bloodier. Drawing attention to those often shadowed by Lincoln, Lee, Davis, and Grant, Sheehan-Dean investigates how the people of the Civil War struggled to define justice and how changing definitions altered the course of the war. Okay. And Aaron Sheehan-Dean is Fred Frey Chair of Southern Studies at Louisiana State University. Okay. All right, I like it. The back cover here says Shiloh, Chancellorsville, Gettysburg, Tens of thousands of soldiers died in these iconic Civil War battles, and throughout the South, civilians suffered terrible cruelty. At least 750,000 lives were lost during the American Civil War. Given its seemingly indiscriminate mass destruction, this conflict is often thought of as the first total war, but the author argues for another interpretation. Okay, all right. I am on board, absolutely. Great. And I always say, when I get books like this is due in early November, I always say when I get on mail hauls like this, I always say, well, it's not due until the fall, so I'll just hold off on reading it, but I seldom do that. I should make a confession here that's not going to surprise a single one of you. I seldom do that. If a book is remotely interesting to me, I tend not to have the strength of will to let it sit on the shelf and unread for months at a time. I really should stop saying that. Oh, fantastic. Oh, boy. All right, this is an August release. This is the finished copy. This is such a book. Oh, my God. This was such a book. You have all got to read it. In one way or another, you've all got to read it. Either buy it, hit up a relative for a Barnes & Noble gift card, or just request it at your library. But boy, oh, boy, it strikes the heart of what we do here on BookTube. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so this comes out in the first week of August. I don't know if we've ever seen it on this channel. It's Reader Come Home, The Reading Brain in a Digital World by Marianne Wolf, and it's amazing. It's an amazing study of reading. Literacy is one of the single most transformative human achievements, altering connections within the brain, changing the lives of individuals, and propelling intellectual trajectory of our species. Within that context, the facts of how we read, what we read, and why we read are changing at ever-accelerating pace and require our collective attention and vigilance. A decade ago, in her groundbreaking work, Proust and the Squid, The Story and Science of the Reading Brain, celebrated author and Tufts University UCLA professor Marianne Wolf revealed how the human brain learned to read and the life-changing effects this human invention has had upon how we think and feel. Her new book, Turn Page Here. Her new book chronicles the changes. Almost nobody's going to get that. Nobody ever gets my illusions. That was Daddy Warbucks, those of you who don't know Annie. This new book chronicles the changes in the brain of children and adults as they read while immersed in digitally dominated mediums. Wolf describes how the plasticity of the reading brain circuit underlies how and why this circuit is changing in response to the emphasis on speed and multitasking demanded by our brains today. The effects of the digital world on attention, memory, and the nature of thought present unique challenges and complex questions about the formation of the reading of the new reading brain, the next reading brain. What is coming is what this book is really about. It studies how we read when we read on our phone, how we read when with a few exceptions, everything is demanding our attention. And it makes some prescriptions. One of the most refreshing things about it is it really just asks lots of questions. One of the conclusions that I came to, and it's not new, it's not a new conclusion to me, I've harped on this channel plenty of times, is that if you're worried about the effect that constant digital distraction is having on your retention, your long-term concentration, your ability to focus, your distractibility, if you're worried about those things, you have to take measures. Just like if you were worried about high blood pressure, you would take active measures to combat it. If you were worried about, a big hard boil erupting on your leg, you would take measures. You wouldn't just say, well, I'll just have to adapt, but I don't really like it. No, you would take active measures. Your brain's ability to concentrate long-term, to focus on one thing at one time, to resist distraction, those are all things that you yourself need to preserve. You can't do it in the idiotic way that lawmakers do, which is to say, well, let's change the distractions so that they don't distract. No, you have to do it yourself. So if you're worried about that, if you feel that in the last 10 years you have lost ability to concentrate, that in the last 10 years you have become much more distractible, which millions of Americans complain about that. Plenty of people comment on that in this book. If you're worried about that, then make a conscious decision to shore up and strengthen the reading muscles that you worry are weakening. Unplug. Walk to the park with a book. Tell yourself you're going to read for 2 hours without doing anything else. Or unplug. Stow your laptop, your tablet, and your phone at home and go to the library's reading room. Find a nice cozy chair or wooden table with a bunch of muscular teenagers and read. That will shore up those muscles. Anyway, let me get a little bit more here because I really do recommend this book. Wow, this is 2 books out of 3 that I wholeheartedly recommend. That's wonderful. So some of the complex questions here there are enumerated for dim-witted reviewers who can't come up with them on their own. Immersed in multitasking and fast-moving media, will the present and next generation learn to develop and allocate time to slower cognitive processes like critical thinking, personal reflection, imagination, and empathy that are all part of deep reading? And deep reading is in italics, as it should be, right? We all know the difference between shallow reading and deep reading. And sometimes you want to shallow read as a change of pace, as a palate cleanser. Sometimes you do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you lose the ability to deep read, you're in big trouble. If you lose the ability to deep read, you're going to have to relearn it if you ever want to acquire it. It's not like like riding a bicycle. I almost said falling off a bicycle. For those of us who are not athletically inclined, that's more apropos. But I don't mean to touch on a sore spot here. I will touch on it just briefly. But deep reading does not happen if you are 25 years old and you are reading exclusively books written for children. If you do that, you are not reading deeply. And it doesn't matter if you and your parents' lawyers then bully the college professors at the nearest school to include those books on the syllabus. That doesn't deepen the books. So we all have to worry about this. I should go on to the next question, shouldn't I? Will the mix of seemingly continuous distractions for children's attention and their quick access to voluminous information give them too little incentive to build their own storehouses of knowledge and think more independently? Will the chain of digital influences ultimately impact is not a verb, the use of critical and analytical and empathetic capacities necessary for a democratic society? Will such potential changes leave us more susceptible to fake news and demagoguery? How can we preserve deep reading processes in future iterations of the reading brain as we acquire ever newer cognitive processes necessary for life in the 21st century? Like I said, this book touches on all kinds of reading subjects that involve us all. So, Reader Come Home, Marianne Wolf, I highly recommend it. And this is not the last time you'll hear me highly recommend it. Wow, all right, so on we go. Now we've got this next one here. Oh, oh, fantastic. Oh, boy. Okay. This comes out, do we know? This comes out in October. I mentioned on this channel before that I seem to be creeping, through no doing of my own, I seem to be creeping onto Tor's publicity list, the great science fiction publisher Tor. For years, as you know on this channel, for years, I couldn't get anything from them. I didn't, to be fair, ask, because I wasn't reviewing any science fiction or fantasy, so it didn't feel right to ask for their books. And by the same token, the flip side of that is that their publicity people probably looked and saw, well, okay, he writes for 80 million venues. He writes lots and lots of book reviews, but never any science fiction. So, you know, not angrily or aggressively, but he's probably not going to be on our list. Thomas at SFF 180, of course, you're going to send him everything. He commands a huge audience of people who trust and respect his opinions on science fiction and fantasy. You want someone like that on your publicity list. Me, not so much. I do a science fiction. I read tons of it. And I do a science fiction and fantasy roundup at the end of every year for my intergalactically famous book blog, Steve Reads. But I don't, in between then and there, in between the reading and that roundup, I do almost nothing. And so I haven't resented Tor for not sending me goodies. But recently they have sent me a few things, and I don't know why, but I really like it, and I'm going to act accordingly. I'm going to review these things, and this latest one is not just something interesting, it's something that I would really want. It's the monster Baru Cormorant by Seth Dickinson. This is the sequel to the Traitor Baru Cormorant. which was great. It made the aforementioned list for great science fiction. Wow, fantastic. Okay, so this comes out in October. This is the Traitor Baru Cormorant is a fantastic book to read. If you haven't read it and you're looking for new science fiction fantasy to read and enjoy, boy oh boy, there you go. So what do we have here? The whole page is full of blurbs, ecstatic blurbs for the Traitor Baru Cormorant. Oh, what have we here? Hmm? Do you want to see the people? Hmm? Hmm? We're fixing for a walk. That's why she's being really obnoxious. So this is her polite way of asking, can you hurry things up so that we can go outside, is to chew on her lord and master. You shouldn't bite people. If we have guests over, you can't bite on people. Oh, God. Let's just ignore the little gremlin for the moment. Here, Frida, settle down. I need a minute more, and then we'll go. Oh. Let me just read you a little bit about this. We're now on a clock here. So, Baru Cormorant's world was shattered by the Empire of Masks. For the power to dismantle the masquerade, she betrayed everyone she loved. Now, a secret lord of the empire she's vowed to destroy, the traitor Baru Cormorant finally has the opportunity to trigger a war that will consume the masquerade. But Baru fears she can no longer tell justice from revenge, or her own desires from the will of the man who remade her. Alright, so this is pretty much a perfect example of what I was just talking about, a book that I am not going to wait to read. So this comes out at the very end of October, but I'll get to it before then. She wants to go out. We'll go out. We'll go for a nice long... Oh, God. I should be hiding that from the camera, not showing it to you. She's rather savage. The last thing is a box, and it's a pretty box. I have a feeling it's probably YA. All right, Frida, settle down. Just stop biting me until I do this. I'll do this last one, and then we'll go. All right? So I don't know how this is going to work. I'd rather not destroy it. It's such a nice thing. Well, I guess we have to destroy it, because this is something that scissors won't work on. Let's see what we have here. Gold wrapping. Fancy schmancy. Wow. See, the YA books always get the treatment. They do. They get the treatment. What is this thing? A sticker. Sisterhood is survival. Guess that rules me out. Let's see here. Oh, and then the book itself comes in a box. Good Lord. Okay. Well, the YA books get the treatment. They this is, you know, the BEA type treatment where where everything about it is pretty, where it's supposed to be not just an advanced copy of the book, but also swag. Okay, so this is called Seafire by Natalie C. Parker. A pretty thing. Nothing says summertime like hanging out on a boat. So dive into Seafire. The first in a heart-stopping trilogy that recalls the undeniable feminine power of Wonder Woman and the powder-keg action of Mad Max, Fury Road. Seafire follows Caledonia, captain of an all-female ship, on her quest to take down a vicious warlord's powerful fleet and save her brother from his army. This highly anticipated novel is an in-house favorite, has been racking up early rave reviews, and was one of the hottest galleys at Book Expo and BookCon. Okay, see what I mean? Because it came in a box, and it's pretty and shiny. With signing lines filling up in minutes, and eager readers waiting for galley giveaways like their lives depended on it. Okay. This comes out in late August, so I guess I'll read it right away. And the pub sheet says, I won't spend a lot of time talking about the plot. Okay, all right. So Seafire is set in a seafaring world that is as richly imagined as it is impeccably researched. The daughter of a naval doctor, Natalie spent her childhood on ships, always lived on the coast, learned to scuba dive and sail, and in short, she developed a lifelong love for the sea. Pair that with her deep interest in sustainable technology and her passion for sci-fi and fantasy novels, and the result is an immersive, masterfully crafted world. Okay, well, it comes out in late August, so I can do it right away. I can read it today. So I will. A pretty box and all the pretty wrappings will just have to go by the wayside. I wish... I'll read it and see what I think. I can't quite tell from the wording of all that pub sheet if this is the author's first book. I wish that I didn't get such a strong feeling off the galley that this is a book with an unspoken but very real motto printed in like invisible ink around its cover saying "No boy readers wanted." I really wish I didn't get that impression. Probably I won't when I read the book. That's probably just a knee-jerk reaction. But anyway, so this, I guess, was a hit at BookCon and Book Expo and whatnot. So we have Seafire, the first in a new YA series. We have The Monster Baru Cormorant, the sequel to the Traitor Baru Cormorant. We have Reader Come Home by Marianne Wolfe, a study of the new digital brain, the new digital reading experience, what it's doing to readers. Because no matter how low-tech you are, no matter how proudly you say, I don't do ebooks, I just do printed paper books, no matter how steadfastly you do that, you still do an enormous amount of digital reading every day. All of us do. And this is a book that squarely looks at that and what it's doing. And especially what it's doing to the next generation, a generation, 8, 9, 10 to 15 years old who never read anything that wasn't digital, unless they were made to. It's utterly fascinating. Then The Calculus of Violence, a new angle on the violence, or maybe lack thereof, in the American Civil War. Totally fascinating. And Debriefing the President by John Nixon in paperback, about the interrogation of Saddam Hussein. And the weird charisma that this monster had, one-on-one, shorn of all power. I can't recommend it highly enough. But I'm going to wrap this up for now because obviously we've got to go. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.